Claire, don't forget to lock up. We're trusting you with the place, Jonah said, giving me one last glance before stepping out the door. Of course. Enjoy your trip, I replied, trying to muster a sincere smile. I watched as Jonah walked away, the door shutting softly behind him. The house suddenly felt bigger, emptier, even though Jonah's parents were still around somewhere. I sighed, turning the lock with a decisive click. That's when the reality of my situation hit me again. I took a deep breath and walked into the kitchen. My work laptop awaited me on the dining table, competing with the clutter left by my in-laws. Gregory's golf magazines and Ellen's knitting projects had taken over every available surface. Our once tidy home now felt like a chaotic battleground. Claire, could you be a dear and make some tea? Ellen's voice floated in from the living room. My jaw clenched, but instead of answering, I grit my teeth and filled the kettle with water. I was getting used to these constant requests, though each one chipped away at my patience. I glanced at the stack of bills accumulating next to my laptop, frustrated that no one else seemed to notice or care. Jonah and I had been happy once, before his parents moved in unannounced. We hadn't even celebrated our first anniversary when they showed up, their car loaded with luggage and the announcement, "We need to stay for just a while, dear." That while had now stretched into months. Claire, you should come and sit with us, Gregory called out. His tone was always commanding, never quite asking. Feeling cornered, I obliged, carrying Ellen's tea into the cluttered living room. She took it without a word of thanks, her attention glued to the television. So, Jonah mentioned your project is going well, Gregory began, his eyes flicking over my disheveled appearance. Good for you. Yeah, it's keeping me busy, I replied, forcing myself to sit on the edge of the couch. Busy is good, but don't forget your duties at home, Ellen added, stirring her tea with a patronizing smile. The conversation was always the same. Any success I had at work was downplayed, overshadowed by their narrow views of my responsibilities. Jonah's lack of action grated on me, his unwillingness to confront them only making things worse. Claire, Jonah had said a week ago, looking anxious, they're just old and set in their ways. It'll get better. But it hadn't. As much as I loved Jonah, his optimism felt like a betrayal. To him, keeping the peace with his parents was paramount, but for me, it was making life unbearable. I bit my tongue once more, swallowing the retort forming in my mind. A notification pinged on my laptop, a reminder of the client meeting I had in 10 minutes. I need to get back to work, I stated, rising from my precarious seat on the couch. My heart pounded, every interaction with them feeling like a test of endurance. Gregory waved me off dismissively, eyes returning to his newspaper. Ellen merely nodded, engrossed in her knitting. Back at the table, I pushed aside their clutter to make room for my work, the weight of my situation pressing down on me once again. I wondered how many more facades I could wear, how many more compromises I could stomach. Jonah's easygoing nature felt like a distant memory, replaced by an unsettling complacency. My idyllic visions of married life crumbled with each passing day, shadowed by the constant presence of his parents. The kettle whistled, its sharp sound piercing through my reverie. Another tea break for Ellen, another test of patience for me. As I poured the boiling water, I looked out the window, wondering if I'd ever reclaim the peace I'd once envisioned for our home. Endless days of small sacrifices loomed ahead, but deep down, a flicker of determination sparked. Something had to give, and I wouldn't let it be myself. Claire, there's something wrong with the dishwasher again. It never happens when Jonah uses it. Ellen's voice cut through my focus as I worked at the dining table. I clenched the edge of my laptop, taking a quick breath. Jonah doesn't even know how to use it. He never cleans up. I fired back, trying to keep my voice steady. Ellen's eyes narrowed. That's because he works hard all day, unlike you, who can work from home and still manage to mess things up. I got up and walked to the kitchen, trying to kill the conversation. Ellen trailed behind me, her disapproving presence filling the space. I opened the dishwasher, fiddling with the controls just to do something with my hands. Gregory appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame with a smug look. You wouldn't have these issues if you just did things right, Claire. My patience was wearing thin. Maybe you two could help out once in a while, I snapped, unable to hold back. Gregory chuckled, the sound grating my nerves. Help? We're guests here. It's your job to make us comfortable. I slammed the dishwasher shut. It was clear nothing I said would matter. Retreating to the dining table, I tried to bury myself in work, but their voices kept pulling me back into the toxic atmosphere. Jonah appeared briefly in the evening, but his presence did little to ease the tension. "Hey, Claire, everything all right?" he asked, looking between me and his parents. "Just peachy," I replied, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Your parents seem to think I'm the maid." Ellen piped up. "We only ask for small favors. Jonah, Claire should be able to handle it." Jonah frowned, glancing at me apologetically. "I'm sorry, Claire. Can we talk about this later?" I pushed my chair back, frustration boiling over. "No, Jonah, we need to talk about this now." But he wilted, his eyes darting back to his parents. "Another time, okay?" he said softly. I walked away, feeling a mixture of anger and despair. Their manipulation and his avoidance were driving a wedge deeper and deeper. Upstairs, I checked my credit card statement on a whim and froze. "Jonah!" I shouted, my voice echoing through the house. He scrambled up the stairs, his parents close behind. "What is it?" he asked, bewildered. "Did you use my credit card?" I demanded, showing him the statement with luxury purchases I never made. Jonah looked blank. "No, I didn't." Gregory stepped forward. "We did. We needed a few things, and we assumed it was fine." "You assumed," I repeated, disbelief lacing my voice. "You charged thousands of dollars without asking?" Ellen's face turned cold. "We're family. What's yours is theirs, too." "No," I said, shaking with fury. "That's not how this works." I threw the credit card on the bed, fighting a scream. Jonah looked helpless, his face pale. "I'll talk to them, Claire. I promise." I backed away, disgusted. "Promises mean nothing if you don't act on them, Jonah," I said, storming out of the room, leaving them to stew in the mess they created. Their voices continued downstairs, but I tuned them out, feeling more isolated than ever. I needed a plan, something to reclaim my life. That's when a burning resolve started to form. Enough was enough. It was high time things changed, and I was going to make sure they did. Days blurred together as I threw myself into work. Projects piled up, deadlines loomed, but I found a strange solace in my tasks. Each design, each client meeting kept me away from the chaos at home. My colleagues noticed my dedication to the job, offering words of encouragement and praise. "Claire," Ryan said, leaning on my cubicle wall, "you're on fire lately. How do you do it?" "It's called survival," I joked, though a part of me meant it. Ryan laughed. "Well, keep it up. Management's noticed. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a promotion in your future." His words lit a small spark of hope. At least one part of my life was under control. Back home, things were as unbearable as ever. Gregory and Ellen's dominance grew stronger by the day. They moved my belongings without asking, filled the house with their things, and hovered over every aspect of my life. It was suffocating. One evening, I came home to find Ellen rearranging my office. "Ellen, what are you doing?" I asked, my voice strained from a long day. "Your space was too cluttered." "I'm organizing it," she replied nonchalantly. My jaw clenched. I like my things where they were. "Well, it's better this way," she insisted, not bothering to pause. At dinner, the conversation turned acidic. "Claire, maybe you should take cooking classes," Gregory suggested with a smirk. "Your meals could use some improvement." I stared at him, wondering how he could be so condescending. "Maybe you should appreciate the fact that I'm cooking at all." Gregory chuckled, turning to Jonah. "See, son, this is what I mean. A little gratitude goes a long way." Jonah looked uneasy, trapped between us. "Let's just eat," he said, attempting to steer clear of another confrontation. The final straw came when I checked my bank account and found another series of unauthorized transactions. This time, it was for an expensive spa package. I stormed into the living room, holding the bank statement in my hand. "More charges, really?" I yelled. "You spent $1,200 on a spa?" Ellen barely looked up from her knitting. "Relax, Claire. It was just a treat. We needed it." "You needed it? How about asking before using my money?" I spat. Gregory looked up from his newspaper, unfazed. "This isn't all your money, Claire. We're family." "No, this is theft," I countered, my voice shaking with rage. The tension in the room thickened. Jonah stepped in, trying to mediate. "Claire, we'll sort this out, right, Mom? Dad?" Ellen and Gregory shrugged, clearly not taking it seriously. Jonah's attempts to placate me only deepened my feeling of betrayal. I left the room, retreating to my work once again, using it as my only escape. Then the promotion came. Management called me in. offering me a senior graphic designer role. The additional workload meant more time at the office, and I clung to the opportunity like a lifeline. I spent longer hours at work, enjoying the camaraderie of my colleagues and the satisfaction of my achievements. At home, I distanced myself, focusing on my future. The bitterness I felt towards Jonah and his parents grew, fueling my determination to take action. Late one night, as I walked through the empty office, Ryan found me packing up. "Big plans for the weekend? More work," I admitted. "Keeps me sane." He nodded. "If you ever need to talk, you know where to find me." His support gave me a momentary reprieve, but I knew my real battle lay ahead. It was time to reclaim my life, no matter the cost. I started to outline my next steps, every small detail fueling my resolve. I opened the front door to find a note taped to it. "Gone for a week, back soon." It read in Ellen's flowery handwriting. My heart sank and then spiked in anger. They hadn't mentioned any trip, let alone asked for permission to leave like this. My mind raced with possibilities, but one thing was certain: I was done being their doormat. I walked inside, each step echoing through the empty house. The kitchen was a mess, unwashed dishes piled in the sink, crumbs scattered across the counters. The living room was no better. The TV was left on, magazines were strewn everywhere, and Ellen's knitting needles lay tangled on the coffee table. "Unbelievable," I muttered, grabbing a trash bag. As I worked my way through the house, I spotted my credit card bill on the dining table. My hands trembled as I opened it, each charge feeling like a slap in the face. My eyes widened, seeing several $1,000s spent on their spontaneous trip. I dialed Jonah's number, fury boiling inside me. "Hey, Claire," he answered, sounding oddly relaxed. "Where the hell are you?" I demanded. We decided to take a quick trip to Las Vegas," he stammered. "I thought I told you." "No, you didn't," I hissed, "and you used my credit card again." "Claire, it's not like that," Jonah tried to explain, but my patience snapped. "You took them on a vacation with my money while I'm here working my tail off?" I shouted. Silence followed on his end, an indication of his usual avoidance strategy. "You know what? Enjoy your trip," I said icily, and hung up. Alone in the house, my rage fueled my next steps. I called a lawyer first thing in the morning. "I need to discuss selling a house," I said, setting an urgent appointment. Next, I contacted a real estate agent. "I want the house on the market immediately." I instructed. "How fast can we move?" "With the current market, pretty quickly," the agent replied. "We'll start the paperwork right away." I spent the next few days stealthily packing my belongings. I didn't want to leave anything to chance. With each box taped up, my resolve strengthened. I also found a small apartment downtown, perfect for a fresh start. The sense of reclaiming control over my life was exhilarating. I walked through each room of the house, making mental notes of what to take and what to leave behind. The thought of selling everything they had taken over was the sweetest form of revenge. Jonah tried calling several times, but I ignored each one. I needed clarity, and his excuses only fogged it up. Every box packed was a step closer to my freedom, and a step farther from the prison my home had become. With everything organized and the house ready for sale, I spent my last night there. It felt surreal, like shedding an old skin. The space was empty, just like the emotional void left by Jonah and his parents. I could almost hear their voices, bossing me around, belittling me. But now, I no longer cared. The deed was done. By the time they returned, they wouldn't recognize the place nor their control over it. With a last look around, I locked the door, stepping out into the cool night air, savoring the first taste of freedom and the sweet scent of impending karma. The door creaked shut behind me as I entered my new apartment, a small, tidy space downtown. My boxes were neatly stacked along the wall, and the sight of them made me feel a deep sense of accomplishment. One by one, I began unpacking, placing my things exactly where I wanted them, this time with no interference. I had arrangements to make. First, I visited my lawyer. "Claire, everything looks in order," she confirmed, flipping through the documents she had prepared. "If you're sure about this, we can push the sale through quickly." "Do it," I replied without hesitation. Next stop was the real estate agent's office. "The house is now listed," she informed me. "I've already had several inquiries." "Great," I said, feeling a spark of satisfaction. "Let's make it happen as fast as possible." As the days passed, I balanced work and my covert operation. By day, I was the diligent graphic designer, throwing myself into my new role. By night, I moved essentials into the apartment, making it feel more like home. The only messages I received from Jonah were attempts to soothe my burning anger, but they went unanswered. One particular evening, I found myself in the office late, a usual occurrence now. Ryan, my colleague, noticed me as he packed up to leave. "Burning the midnight oil again?" he asked, coming to lean on my desk. "Yeah, lots to do," I replied, trying to keep my tone light. "Want to grab a coffee? You look like you could use a break," he offered. "Sure," I agreed, realizing that a bit of normalcy could do me some good. At the cafe, we sipped our drinks in a comfortable silence before Ryan broke it. "Something's been bugging you," he said, more of a statement than a question. I sighed, deciding if I should burden him with my mess. "It's complicated at home," I finally admitted. "If you ever need help, I'm here," he said, his sincerity touching me in ways Jonah's evasions never did. "Thanks, Ryan," I said softly, appreciating the gesture more than he knew. The next morning, I received a call from my real estate agent. "Claire, we have a buyer," she announced. "They're offering more than the asking price and want to close quickly." "Let's do it," I said, feeling elated. The final pieces were falling into place. With the sale nearly complete, I returned to my apartment, envisioning the look on Jonah and his parents' faces when they returned. They wouldn't know what hit them. The last detail involved formalizing the divorce. I made sure the papers were prepared and ready for when they returned. My plan was airtight, each step meticulously thought out and executed. Packing the last of my belongings from the house, I felt a strange sense of peace. I had no regrets. They had pushed me to this point, and now they would face the consequences. I locked the door one final time, leaving the key under the mat with a note. "We're done." I stepped away, my new life awaiting me. The control I had fought so hard to reclaim was finally mine, and as I walked towards my future, the weight lifted from my shoulders and was replaced by a renewed strength. I stood by the window of my new apartment, watching the minute hand on the clock crawl. Any moment now they'd come back from their trip. I could almost picture their confused faces when they found themselves locked out. It wasn't long before my phone buzzed. It was Jonah. I let it ring twice before picking up. "What's happening here? We can't get into the house," he yelled, his voice frantic. "I sold it," I said calmly. There was silence on the other end of the line. "You? What?" Jonah finally spluttered. "I sold the house. It's done," I repeated, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over me. "You can't do that. This is our home." Ellen's voice shrieked in the background. "No," I replied, my voice cold as steel. "It was my home. You've been nothing but uninvited guests." Jonah was silent, too stunned to respond. Ellen grabbed the phone from him. "We'll see about this, Claire. We'll get a lawyer. You'll regret this," she threatened. "Do whatever you feel you need to," I said, unbothered. "But the paperwork is ironclad. You'll find no loopholes." On the other end, I could hear Gregory cursing. "This isn't over, Claire," he snarled before the call dropped. I sighed, placing my phone on the counter. I glanced around my new apartment, feeling the first threads of true peace. The next morning I stood by my lawyer's office, ready for the storm. Jonah, Ellen, and Gregory arrived, their faces a mixture of fury and desperation. I stepped outside to meet them. "Claire, let's be reasonable," Jonah started, his voice wavering. "We can work this out." "We tried," I countered. "You chose them over our marriage time and time again. This is the result." Ellen stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "We took you in, treated you like family." "Your idea of family is using me as a bank and a maid," I fired back. "That's not family." Gregory leered at me. "You'll pay for this, Claire." "No, I'm done paying," I answered firmly, handing Jonah the divorce papers. "Sign these. We're finished." The neighbors nearby began to gather, their curiosity piqued by the spectacle. Jonah glanced at the growing audience, his face flushed with embarrassment. Ellen looked ready to burst, her hands shaking as she snatched the papers from me. "You can't do this," she screamed. "We'll fight you." But their threats fell flat. "Go ahead," I said loudly, making sure the neighbors heard. "But you'll find that legally, you've got no standing. This is my house, my money, and now, my life." Gregory tried to lunge at me, but Jonah held him back, looking defeated. "Just sign the papers, Dad. We have no choice." Ellen gave a final, venomous glare before grabbing a pen and signing the papers with trembling hands. Gregory followed, his anger palpable. Jonah was last, his eyes locking with mine one final time before he signed. "Goodbye, Jonah," I said, turning to leave. The weight of revenge lifted, replaced by a lighter, unburdened spirit. I felt empowered and strong, walking away from the chaos they tried to bind me in. Back at my apartment, I smiled genuinely for the first time in months. It was over. Finally, truly over. The power they had wielded was gone, and in its place, I found my freedom. As the door clicked shut behind me, I knew without a doubt that my new chapter had just begun. In the days following the confrontation, the fallout was swift and dramatic. Jonah, Ellen, and Gregory scrambled to find a place to stay, thrown into disarray. I heard through the grapevine that they had checked into a cheap motel nearby, their former grandeur reduced to complaining about the thin walls and bad service. My days, however, were looking brighter. The air in my new apartment seemed fresher, every small action of my newfound freedom. At work, things were electric. My colleagues noticed a spring in my step, and more than one asked what had changed. "Claire, you're glowing," Ryan commented as we worked on a project. "Did something good happen?" "You could say that," I replied, a genuine smile forming. The feeling of taking back control was better than any spa day the Crosbys could have charged to my card. Meanwhile, Ellen and Gregory's attempts to save face were failing spectacularly. Gregory tried calling in favors from his business contacts, hoping someone would provide a temporary space or financial aid. The responses were as cold as his heart, each rejection a blow to his inflated ego. Ellen's threats of legal action fell apart quickly. My lawyer, Kate, was thorough and efficient. "Don't worry, Claire," she reassured me over the phone. "They have no grounds to stand on. You made sure of that." Their public disgrace brought a strange satisfaction. The neighbors talked in hushed tones about the family who had been so unceremoniously evicted. Each muttered word was a victory for me. The old me would have felt guilty, but no more. I was done with feeling sorry for them. Ellen, ever the instigator, couldn't resist calling me. "This isn't over, Claire. You'll pay for humiliating us," she spat through the phone. I chuckled, the sound surprising even me. "Ellen, your threats are empty. Move on." "I have." Click. I hung up, feeling lighter. Ryan, who'd overheard my side of the conversation, raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay?" "Better than okay," I said, my grin widening. Jonah showed up once at my apartment, a last-ditch effort. He looked harried, his eyes pleading. "Claire, please, can we talk?" I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "Talk about what, Jonah? You made your choices." "I'm sorry," he started, but I cut him off. "Sorry isn't good enough," I said firmly. "You chose them over us, over me, and now you face the consequences." Jonah's shoulders sagged. I didn't know things would get this bad. "Well, they did, and now it's time for you to deal with it," I replied. "Goodbye, Jonah." Closing the door on him felt like closing a door on the last remnants of my past. I felt a rush of empowerment, a clear signal that I was moving forward. Ryan caught me after work that day. "You really are something, Claire," he said with admiration in his eyes. "Just doing what needed to be done," I replied simply. Back in my apartment, I toasted to my newfound peace. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my life, my independence. The sight of Jonah, Ellen, and Gregory struggling was merely the cherry on top. I curled up with a book, the quiet of my space a comforting blanket. The drama was behind me, and the future ahead seemed full of promise. For the first time in a long while, I could envision a life free from manipulation and control, and that was the sweetest victory of all. Settling into my new apartment brought a sense of liberation I hadn't felt in years. I threw myself into my new role at work with gusto, thriving in the creative energy and camaraderie of my team. The promotion meant longer hours, but I welcomed them, relishing every new challenge that came my way. One evening, after a particularly busy day, Ryan caught me as I was packing up. "Hey, Claire, a few of us are going out for drinks. Care to join?" For a moment, I hesitated, then smiled. "Why not?" At the bar, the conversation flowed easily. Ryan and I exchanged stories, shared laughs. It felt good to unwind, surrounded by friends who respected me. "So you're finally free from that madhouse, huh?" Ryan said, clinking his glass against mine. "Yeah, it feels like I can finally breathe again," I replied, a genuine smile on my face. Despite the emotional fallout from the divorce, I found myself enjoying my independence. My days were full, my nights peaceful. The anxiety that once gripped me was replaced by a newfound sense of joy. One day, as I was leaving the office, my younger coworker, Ethan, caught up to me. "Hey, Claire, you got a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" I asked, curious. Ethan looked a bit nervous, scratching the back of his head. "I was wondering if you'd like to grab dinner sometime. Just the two of us." I blinked, caught off guard. "Dinner? Are you asking me out, Ethan?" He chuckled, a bit embarrassed. "Yeah, I guess I am." I smiled, considering his offer. "I'd like that." "When? How about tomorrow night? There's this great Italian place I know." "Sounds perfect," I said, feeling an unfamiliar flutter of excitement. The next evening, we met at the cozy Italian restaurant. Conversation flowed easily, and Ethan's youthful exuberance was infectious. Over plates of pasta and glasses of wine, I found myself opening up in a way I hadn't in a long time. "You seem different now," Ethan noted, twirling his fork. "Happier." "I am," I admitted. "It's been a tough journey, but I'm finally finding myself again." Ethan smiled warmly. "Well, I'm glad. You deserve to be happy." As the evening drew to a close, we walked back to my apartment. Ethan hesitated at the door, looking as if he wanted to say something. "Thank you for tonight," I said, breaking the silence. "I had a great time." "Me too," Ethan replied, leaning in for a quick, shy kiss on the cheek. "Good night, Claire." "Good night, Ethan," I said, closing the door and feeling a warmth spread through me. Inside, I sat down with a content sigh. Life was starting to unfold in ways I never imagined. The past was behind me, and a future full of possibilities lay ahead. Over the next few weeks, Ethan and I spent more time together. We explored the city, shared meals, and laughed late into the night. It was refreshing to be with someone who appreciated me for who I was, without any hidden agendas or manipulations. With each passing day, I realized how strong I had become. No more compromises, no more living under someone else's thumb. This was my life, and I was determined to live it on my own terms. One evening, as I sat in my apartment, the city lights twinkling outside my window, I felt a profound sense of peace. The chaos and drama of the past were behind me, replaced by a calm, steady happiness. This was my new chapter, a fresh start. And for the first time in a long while, I felt optimistic about the future, confident that I could handle whatever came my way.
"I'm sorry to say this, but our son got the president's daughter pregnant. We need you to divorce him."
As both my in-laws looked apologetic, they came to me with this news. My husband, Robin, the main person involved, showed no signs of remorse and seemed indifferent. He doesn't feel sorry for making his parents apologize. To them, I responded, "That's fine, but you know my husband has debts, right?" To this, Robin oddly replied with a sense of pride.
"Debts can be sorted out with a remarriage, especially since she's the president's daughter."
I could only laugh at his carefree comment. "Just wait and see. You won't be so relaxed forever." My name is Michelle, 50 years old. I work as a company employee and support our family. I've been married to my husband, Robin, who's 5 years younger, for 20 years. Our daughter, now in college, lives on her own. If I had to describe Robin in one word, it would be indecisive. He acts impulsively without planning, and doesn't seem to learn from his mistakes. I used to think he was a man of action, but after marriage, I often found myself at the mercy of his whims. His father is similar, so maybe it's genetic, but Robin doesn't have bad drinking habits or gamble extravagantly. He does help with childcare to some extent, so despite some dissatisfaction, I've turned a blind eye and continued our marriage. However, I've always had a major issue with my in-laws. They have a habit of living beyond their means, and we've had to cover their living expenses from our family budget. My father-in-law, Justin, hops from job to job, never sticking with one for long, always complaining of tiredness or bad work relationships. My mother-in-law, Pauline, works part-time, so her income is limited. Despite their situation, they never cut back on their lifestyle and keep accumulating debt. When they're in trouble, they come to us for money. Justin spends his money on hobbies, like golf clubs and fishing rods.
Michelle, I'm sorry, but could you send us some money again? I fell in love with this expensive golf club and just had to buy it. I promise, I won't waste money next time.
Meanwhile, Pauline splurges on designer clothes, bags, and jewelry. I'm sorry, Michelle. Could you send a little money? There was a new release of my favorite brand, and I ended up buying a lot. I'll try to save from now on, I promise. My in-laws live day to day with no regard for the future. I wonder why they spend money so thoughtlessly. They apologize to me, but keep repeating the same mistakes, so I doubt their sincerity. I, on the other hand, grew up with a father who worked in an office and a stay-at-home mother. Both were serious and preferred a simple life. So, in our house, apart from special occasions like Thanksgiving, birthdays, and Christmas, we didn't indulge in luxuries. I learned from my mother how to enjoy saving and live within a limited income. Thanks to this, I never struggled during my college days living alone. That's why the lifestyle of my in-laws doesn't sit well with me, and it's always bothered me. I've been supporting my in-laws with $700 a month while securing my daughter's tuition fees. I continue to work to support both. It's hard to accept cleaning up after my in-laws' financial mess, especially when it's not for my daughter's future. At first, Robin apologized about his parents, but gradually his gratitude faded. Recently, he's been going out drinking and playing more often. He even started demanding more pocket money. I was really angry about this. Most of the $700 I send to his parents comes from my earnings. He should be taking care of his parents, but since I earn more, he's been begging me to pay. And now, he's asking for more spending money. Our relationship became strained, and our arguments increased. One day, he said to me,
Can you please increase my allowance? I'm going drinking with my subordinates. It's embarrassing not to pay when I'm the superior. It's part of my job.
You just said that last time and spent a lot at the bar. Stop trying to impress your subordinates by paying for them. We've already stretched thin with your parents asking for money this month.
What's that supposed to mean? Are you blaming my parents? I can't let them suffer.
Then you should be the one sending the money. They're your parents. I'm the one paying most of it. How can you be so arrogant? Our arguments have been ongoing like this. Lately, we barely speak to each other. It's really frustrating. I try to act normal when our daughter comes home, but the atmosphere is awkward. She seems to have noticed the tension between us. If there's anything you want to talk, I'm here for you. I feel bad for making her worry, but I'm fed up with my in-laws' spending habits and Robin's attitude. So, I've been considering divorce. Half a year later, Robin's request for money and my in-laws' demands suddenly stopped. Maybe they've finally come around? I hoped so. But I soon realized that was a big mistake. One day, I received a phone call. It was my day off, and Robin was out. I was home alone. I casually answered it, but it revealed Robin's secret. And it wasn't just that. When I checked his computer, I discovered even more shocking truths. The anger made me shake. His secret was a complete betrayal to me, his wife. I was naive to think he had become quieter because he was reflecting on his behavior. My love for him had already faded, but this secret was the last straw for our marriage. I decided to contact someone right away. Later, I waited for him to return. Several hours after the phone call, he came back in the evening. He looked puzzled, seeing me sitting sternly on the living room sofa. I faced him squarely and started the conversation. Welcome home. You're late. I need to ask you something.
Why so formal? What's the matter?
You have debts, don't you? You got some nerve keeping secrets from me. At my words, his face changed, and he started to panic. He shifted his gaze around, muttering, and, trying desperately to cover up. Of course, I wasn't going to let that pass. I stared at him intently, conveying my unwillingness to accept any excuses. In the midst of this tense atmosphere, my cell phone suddenly rang. Seemingly relieved, he shouted,
You better answer that phone.
Honestly, I was in no mood for a phone call, but I had no choice, so I took out my phone. It was Pauline. Sorry for the sudden call. We have something important to discuss, and my husband and I are on our way over. We'll be there soon. She rattled off her message without waiting for my response and hung up before I could say anything. It seemed my in-laws were on their way to our house. It was inconvenient to have them come over so suddenly, but it was too late to stop them. I told Robin, we'll continue this conversation later, and started preparing for my in-laws' arrival. I was feeling terribly downhearted, knowing only trouble comes from them. Soon, they arrived. While serving tea, I asked them, What brings you here today? You seemed quite rushed on the phone. As I asked, their faces turned grim, and they started looking apologetic. I was taken aback by their sudden change.
Michelle, we're sorry. Robin got the daughter of my boss pregnant. The president and his daughter don't know Robin's married. It's a mess, so we need you to divorce him.
Pauline nodded in agreement. If you don't divorce him, my husband will lose his job. He finally got a stable job, and this will ruin it. We'll pay you, so please, divorce our son. Apparently, my father-in-law Justin recently started working at a construction company, whose president has a 37-year-old unmarried daughter, Olivia. She's a hard-working woman who missed her chance to marry due to her career. Justin, though irresponsible with money, has a humorous personality and good communication skills. He found out in a casual conversation that the president was looking for a husband for Olivia, and impulsively introduced Robin as a single man. Knowing that my marriage with Robin was on the rocks, he planned to have me initiate the divorce to facilitate Olivia and Robin getting together. But then, Robin accidentally got her pregnant. The president, after hearing of the pregnancy from Olivia, intended to have them marry immediately. So, they rushed over to ask me for a divorce. I was frustrated by my in-laws' absurd plan. It was sloppy and impulsive. I was appalled by my husband's readiness to jump into such a plan. I decided to proceed with the conversation and told my in-laws to stop apologizing. I don't mind divorcing. Given the circumstances, continuing our marriage with Robin is difficult. But you do know he has debts, right? Are you sure about this? That's right. He had a huge debt. He borrowed $70,000 from shady people. The call that day was a demand for repayment. I mentioned the debt not out of concern for my in-laws, but to avoid them complaining later that I hadn't informed them. His debt was a product of his indecision and my in-laws' carelessness. I definitely didn't want to be involved in paying it off. My in-laws, unaware of the debt, confronted their son, asking,
What's this about?
Robin, unfazed and even arrogant, was a stark contrast to his earlier nervousness. Thinking my in-laws were entirely on his side, his attitude grew bolder. He declared, confidently,
With my remarriage, these debts will be nothing. Olivia is a wealthy president's daughter, and she's head over heels for me. If I ask her for money, she'll lend me as much as I need.
How can you be so presumptuous? Agreeing to a divorce is one thing, but you're the one at fault for cheating. I'll be sure to claim a fair amount of alimony.
Fine. I'll pay whatever alimony. Once I marry the president's daughter, I can easily afford it. If it means getting rid of an unattractive wife like you, it's a bargain.
Oh, really? Quite confident, aren't you? I found it ridiculous, but held back my laughter, knowing the turn of events that was about to unfold. He was about to be brought down to earth. At that moment, two furious figures appeared from the back room. My in-laws and Robin turned pale at the sight of them.
Enough of this nonsense. I've heard everything.
Robin, you've been deceiving me all this time. The two, emerging from the back, were Olivia and her father, the president. The president's face was red with anger, and Olivia, tearful, glared at Robin. In fact, when I had secretly checked Robin's computer earlier, I found emails between him and Olivia. I had copied her email address and secretly contacted her, revealing that Robin was married and was planning to marry her for her money while hiding his debts. Olivia broke down in tears upon learning she had been deceived, and the president was furious at Robin for lying about being single and misleading his daughter. So I invited them over to confront my husband as he returned. Robin was visibly panicked and began to make excuses to the president.
No, it's not like that. My relationship with my wife had already soured, and we were on the verge of divorce. The only person I love now is Olivia. Please, let me marry her as soon as I divorce Michelle.
Olivia, not the president, responded to his words. She exploded in anger, shouting, "Forget it! Like I would marry a man who hit on me while being married. And to top it off, he's in debt. It's the worst. I was completely deceived. I'll raise the baby myself, but I'm going to sue you." She covered her face and burst into tears. The president, comforting her, glared at my in-laws and Robin.
I'll have a lawyer demand alimony and child support. Be prepared.
He looked at me, and then left with Olivia. Left behind, Robin and my in-laws stood there, dumbfounded. Ignoring them, I delivered my message. Too bad. It looks like you won't be marrying the president's daughter. Meanwhile, I'll proceed with the divorce. I'll get a lawyer, so be ready. Hearing this, he started trembling. He, like his parents, started apologizing to me.
Michelle, I was wrong. I got frustrated during our fights and made a bad decision. I won't cheat again. Please, don't abandon me.
My in-laws joined in, pleading,
Please, give our son another chance.
Seeing them like this, I was utterly disgusted. Don't be ridiculous. There's no way I'd stay married to a despicable man like you. Getting a single woman pregnant while being married? Poor Olivia, to be deceived by such a fool.
Michelle, don't say that.
Shut up. I'm sick of your irresponsible spending and debts. You've taken me for granted for too long. I don't ever want to see your face again. Stay away from me. They were all crying, but that was no longer my concern. I left them behind and walked away. A few weeks later, my divorce from Robin was finalized. He tried desperately to reconcile, but I firmly refused, and he eventually gave up. Olivia also demanded alimony from him for their child. My father-in-law just didn't lose his job, but is now working in a very uncomfortable environment. They had to sell their house and now live in a cheap apartment. They are all working tirelessly day and night. I wish them the best in their hard work. As for me, I'm living in an apartment with my daughter, who's now working. She suggested we live together, worried about me post-divorce. She is very responsible with money and never asks for anything. In fact, she's so modest that she even refuses when I offer her pocket money. I'm really looking forward to our upcoming trip together. Just the two of us.
Just as I was thinking that I would be able to spend some relaxing time for the first time in a while, my sister, Ava, showed up, unannounced. It was still early for dinner time. I could sense a subtle peculiarity in her mood. "I have something important to tell you, Melissa," she announced carefree. I thought she was going to ask me to buy her expensive cosmetics and brand name accessories again. "My name is Melissa. I work for an ad agency. My father was a civil servant, and I grew up in a relatively well-off family. My mother favored and spoiled my little sister, Eva, who was 5 years younger than me. She had beautiful, deep blue eyes and a small button nose, and was good at taking advantage of others. She was more spoiled than she should have been. She became a child who begged for one expensive thing after another and got bored as soon as she got them. Even as a child, I knew that I was plain and had no particular talent, so I studied hard to get my parents' attention. But even though I got good scores on tests, they never really acknowledged me, and I often felt lonely. I always kept excellent grades, which led me to secure an offer from one of the top ad agencies after my graduation. I got married to my coworker, Liam, and started a new chapter of my life 2 years ago. On the other hand, Ava, who was not interested in studying, started attending a no-name college. She had an amazing body and always dressed stylishly, so she must have gotten a lot of attention from her fellow male students. She was always being pampered by a group of them. I often heard that she received surprisingly expensive gifts. When I sometimes saw her at my parents' house, she proudly showed me pictures of her handsome boyfriends and bragged me about him non-stop. Her boyfriend changed every time I saw her, so I was a little concerned about the string of short-term relationships. I told myself that it must have been like a game for her, as she had no shortage of men. At one point, she suddenly and somewhat forcibly started coming over for dinner at my house. She must have realized that Liam and I lived relatively close to her college. She lived alone in a beautiful but expensive apartment after begging our parents to let her stay there. I knew she never cooked, as it damaged her nails. I had been invited to her place a few times, just so that she could show off her comfortable lifestyle. I looked in the kitchen and saw almost no food or cooking utensils at the time. Since she was like that, she must have missed home cooking. Besides, she seemed to be happy to save some money on food. In fact, she never mentioned chipping in, let alone acting humble about it. Although Liam and I didn't have kids, we were both busy working every day. Unconcerned, she always showed up without notice, so I felt uneasy at home. I was a little annoyed and confided in Liam about it. "Let her be. She's your sister. Take it easy on her. Besides, I'm happy to see her." He hardly ever helps me with the chores, so he must have thought cooking and cleaning weren't such big deals. It was partly my fault for taking all the housework, making them my responsibility after he showed reluctance at the beginning of our marriage. I managed my frustration thinking that way. I normally listened to my favorite music at high volume and got rid of my annoyance. One Saturday afternoon, I thought I'd be able to relax for the first time in a while, and I was happily thinking about what I was going to do. And then Ava, as usual, suddenly showed up. It was still early for dinner time, and the sun was shining outside. I could sense a subtle peculiarity in her mood. I have something important to tell you, Melissa, she announced carefree. I thought she was going to ask me to buy her expensive cosmetics and brand name accessories again. You know, I'm actually dating Liam. I was so baffled that I just stared at her with wide eyes at first. Dating my husband? What are you talking about? You know, we're going out, like lovers. You're kidding, right? Since when? I'm not sure. Liam came to her side from lounging around in the living room. Yeah, we're together. So, let's break up. What do you mean by break up? You mean a divorce? Please, I beg you too. If you resist, I'll be in trouble. I'm going to have a baby. What? You can't be serious. Yes, I'm pregnant. She was not only having an affair with Liam, asking me to leave him because she was having a baby. The two of them leaned in close to each other and looked at me with a smile on their faces. It was getting too surreal for me to keep up, but it didn't even end there. I think we have to prepare a good environment for the new baby. Don't you agree, Melissa? I thought I would no longer be surprised to hear anything. I wondered what she had to say next and turned my vacant eyes toward her. I happened to see this ad. Look, isn't it a nice condo? I am proud of you for spotting such a nice place. Actually, we already had a look at it. It's spacious, clean, and convenient. It's a perfect condo for us. And what does it have to do with me? Oh my god, you're so dull, you know. You've been with Liam for 2 years, but you couldn't get pregnant. He told me he felt disappointed and hurt. We are going to have a baby. You should be happy for us. Are you saying it's my fault that I didn't get pregnant? Not really. Look, Melissa, you have a better position in the company and make more money than I do. Can you help us for the sake of your future niece or nephew? I don't have enough money for the down payment at the moment. I'll pay you back, okay? Liam had never been able to save any money since he was a bachelor. He put on a good face to everyone around him and spent it too quickly. He often bought designers brand wallets and clothes but never used them. When we were dating, we always split the cost. He sometimes forgot his wallet or didn't have much money on him, and I often paid for him. I was also paying more into our living expenses in our marriage. Still, I loved him and had no complaints. Please, Melissa, I asked our parents, but, you know, they kind of turned me down. Isn't that awful? The two of them took turns asking me to fulfill their selfish desires. I was at a loss for words at their ridiculous demand. While having an affair behind my back, they had an unplanned pregnancy. I was suddenly confronted with a divorce and asked to help them buy a condo. It was just insane. Looking back, I had to deal with Ava's overly selfish demands for a long time. When we were little, she took my favorite dolls and made me cry. After I started working, she begged me many times to buy her things. Those were different scales compared to unforgivable affair and a ludicrous condo. My love for Liam, as well as Ava, just disappeared. I couldn't bear this hurtful reality. Soon after, I left the house and moved into an apartment alone. Strangely enough, I was relieved. It was like being a single again. Melissa, I heard a soft voice and turned around. It was Beth, my senior at work, whom I had been waiting for. Sorry, I couldn't finish my paperwork. No worries. I'm the one who asked you to meet me when you are busy. That's alright. Let's order something, shall we? Beth, with the menu in her hand, ordered efficiently. I was troubled by Ava and Liam, so I wanted to ask her for advice. "That must have been hard for you." She listened to my story as if it were her own. I almost burst into tears, but managed to tell her everything. I hadn't had much of an appetite the past few days, but she gently urged me to taste the food, and I took her advice. "So good, right? The decor is so-so, but the food is exceptional here." After chatting for a while, Beth suddenly turned serious and asked me, "So, what are you going to do?" "Liam and I can't go back to the way we were, so I guess we are getting a divorce." "I see. If my boyfriend cheated on me, I would end it too, no matter how much I love him. If it was a one-night stand with a call girl or something, maybe I would give it another chance. But she's my sister and still a student." Beth was genial and continued to listen to me afterward. On my way back to my apartment, I noticed several messages on my phone. They were from Liam. He wanted to proceed with divorce as soon as possible for the sake of formality, and also asked me to consider the cost of the condo. They were all one-sided messages. From the way he wrote, he still thought I was a free housekeeper or a convenient cash machine. How much did he need to degrade me? I was sure that I was completely over him then. I decided to visit an attorney the next day, and a short time later, the divorce papers were filed. I had already hired a professional investigator and had him take photos and videos of Liam and Ava together. I had concrete evidence. I also had a recording on my phone when they made insane demands. It was somewhat ironic that I was able to save on the cost of the investigation because of the recording. Of course, I asked for a hefty alimony from Liam. When he found out the amount, he must have felt like his life was sucked out of him. He and Ava waited for me in the lobby of my workplace one day. The two of them came up to me like bulls running toward a matador. I expected this scenario, knowing how shameless they were. I took a deep breath, faced them, and told them in an unwavering voice, "Of course, you will pay me alimony. Ava, you are an adult now, and this is a good lesson for you to learn." "No, we can't pay you. You're a terrible sister. Why are you doing this?" She pleaded with moistened, puffy eyes. I had seen this signature strategy of hers many times before. I, of course, didn't fall for it. "By the way, I've already told our big boss about your infidelity and our divorce as well." "No, you better be joking. Him? Of all people?" "Aside from you, I'm in a higher position. He doesn't want my performance to be affected." "What the hell? You think I'm an idiot?" "I'm just telling you what our boss told me to tell you. I thought he expected a little more from you. So it was a bit surprising and sad. You know, the chairman of our company is actually a distant relative of mine." "What? I didn't know that. You never said a word about it." Liam's face suddenly turned pale with the word chairman. He was even starting to break out in a cold sweat. "I've told you several times before. Since we got married, you've been mostly absent-minded when I talk to you." "But that's still terrible. We were married all this time." "That's my line." "It doesn't matter now that we are in the middle of a divorce. You guys asked me for it anyway." "That's true, but of course, Ava is also responsible for what happened." "Aren't you ashamed of yourself for having an affair with a college student and getting her pregnant?" And you asked me to buy a condo for you. Do you think someone who can't follow the rules of the society and has no morals is in the position to ask for such a thing? I strongly disagree. Whatever. I just wanted to borrow a bit. Didn't you send me the amount via email? I don't think it was just a bit. Ugh. Anyway, it's not your call to decide what happens to my work. No, it's rather my boss's decision. I haven't told you since it hasn't been decided yet, but I've been approached about an HR position a while ago. By your boss? Do you mean Beth? Oh no, baby. If you're in trouble at work, what are you going to do from now on? What about our condo? Help us, Melissa! The two seemed to be in complete panic. They begged me in a frenzy to restore his reputation with the bosses. The co-workers who were passing by glanced at us. I told them to go through my lawyers and left the place. Soon after, the two were spotted by security and taken away for questioning. They tried to call me numerous times, but I never picked up the calls. I also received several texts from them, but none of them resonated with me. Later, Liam received a stern warning not only about the affair, but also about making a scene on the company premises from the chairman, and was utterly dispirited. He had a lot of pride, so it must have mortified him greatly. Not long after that, he was transferred to a regional branch, and Ava reluctantly followed him. Her being a city girl at heart, she wasn't able to handle the close community mindset and very few options for work. She was quite distressed and frustrated that she blamed Liam, and they fought all the time. As for him, he felt uncomfortable when he was at home because she never attended to any housework. He often emailed me complaining about her. She got addicted to online shopping to relieve stress, which led to serious financial trouble. He eventually had to borrow money to pay off her debts and was totally worn out with the loan payment. As a result, they broke up after 6 months. Ava, a single mother with a newborn baby, went right back to her old way and had a string of men in her life. However, they were all players just like her, who only cared about themselves and cheated on her or swindled money out of her. It eventually led her to distrust men, even though she used to be such a serial dater. She needed money and cried to her parents to let her and her baby move in with them. She seemed to be living a slightly better life under their strict eyes. Our mother changed her attitude toward Ava after all and asked her to pay a share of their living expenses. I was a little surprised to hear that she actually got a part-time job. Meanwhile, I'm excited to be asked to go on a business trip abroad for the first time. I'm accompanying Beth as her assistant, so we are currently busy preparing for the trip. Hey, Melissa? That guy is here again. Beth signals with her eyes in a hushed voice. Who? Oh, Mark. Yeah, he's been showing up every day these days. Mark works in a different department and has a reputation for being good-natured and funny. He's looking around the office, but when he notices us, he comes right over with a big smile. He's seeking our opinions on a business matter, so we moved to a conference room to discuss it in private. Oh, I remember I have something urgent to do. Sorry guys, I'll be back. Beth leaves the room in the middle of the meeting, and the two of us fall silent for a few moments. Shall we have a break? Mark goes out to get drinks and hands one to me. Later on, Beth traps me and asks me a lot of questions. My hunch is that he has a thing for you. Really? You think so? Yeah, we used to be in the same department. He's very good at his job and is a sincere person. What do you think about him? I know he's a prominent staff, but I don't know. I can only say he's a nice guy. Oh yeah? I think he's good for you. You guys emit a bright aura when you're together. Hey, you're making me too conscious. Maybe I'll ask him out to dinner when I get back from the business trip. I'm beginning to plan my future.
My husband demanded a divorce to be with a girl 15 years his junior. 5 days later, he realized.
This all bet is ludicrous. Don't you think that you're the reason why your husband is no longer interested in you? No wonder he cheats on you.
That's right. Naomi is much younger and much better than you. Who wants an old woman close to 40?
So, shall we divorce?
Of course, you idiot. File for divorce now. That's an order.
I left them with mixed feelings of despair, revenge, and relief. As I reached into my pocket and grabbed something, a smile came up on my face. Well, goodbye. I'm Della, a 37-year-old housewife. My husband, Levi, is a salesman. I met him through work when I was single. We exchanged business cards and kept strictly a professional relationship at first. From there, dinner invitations gradually increased. Before I knew it, he was contacting me every day. His enthusiastic approach pushed me to become his girlfriend. I knew from a test I took a while ago that it was difficult for me to have a child. My long-time dream of having a happy home with my husband and children was crushed, and I experienced such devastation that I was almost suicidal. Both Levi and my parents were getting to the age when they desired to see their grandchildren. I told them about my condition before they started asking. Both parents were sympathetic. Levi also said, "I want to be with you, Della, no matter what." Those words helped me to overcome the sadness of not being able to have a child. When we got married, we decided to build a fulfilled life for the two of us. 10 years has passed since then. His gentleness of those days were nowhere to be found. We even stopped having meals together. He came home after midnight every night and went to sleep without taking a shower. In the morning, he woke up just in time to go to work. "Are you going to be late again today?"
Yeah, I have to work late.
On his days off, he usually went out to play golf with his clients. When we had planned to go out together for the first time in a while, he canceled at the last minute, saying that he had received an invitation from his best client. I was just a housewife who wanted to support him achieving his career goal. However, by this time, we barely spoke a word to each other. At such times,
"Tomorrow is your birthday, isn't it? Let's go out to dinner for a change."
I was really surprised by his unexpected suggestion. It was also the 10th year of our marriage and a milestone. I was happy to know that even though he was busy, he still cared about me. We decided to meet at the restaurant where we used to go to together. The next day, I put more effort into my outfit and makeup than usual, and headed to the restaurant I reserved. Where is he? When the appointed time came, Levi was nowhere to be seen. He didn't respond to my calls and texts. Around the time I was getting uncomfortable with the glances from the waiter, I finally received a call from him.
"Sorry, I can't make it tonight."
"Are you serious?"
"I'm sorry. I still have work to finish. See you later."
I was stunned when he hung up on me. What a birthday. I felt bad for the restaurant, but I lost my appetite from feeling empty and humiliated and left the place. Levi came home past midnight as usual. I was lying in the bed, but my mind was strangely clear and I could not fall asleep. Normally, I acknowledged him, but I feel like I would explode with emotion if I opened my mouth. I pretended to be asleep. He took off his suit and crawled into bed without taking a shower. That night too, he reeked of alcohol and the scent of perfume. It was the smell that had been on him for a while. As he slept peacefully, I recalled a conversation I had with a friend.
I've decided to get a divorce.
What? When I met up with her for a coffee, she confided me. The cause was her husband's infidelity.
He comes home late every night, smelling of alcohol and perfume. I know he's cheating on me.
Indeed, he was cheating on her. She found out for sure and immediately filed for divorce. I realized that Levi and I were in the same situation. When I asked him about the night before in the morning, he nonchalantly brushed me off, saying I was busy. I kept pressing on him, but I'm going to be late for work, and rushed out. I called my friend and asked her for advice.
That's definitely cheating. It's unforgivable.
Hearing that, I started simmering with anger. I was mad at not only Levi, but went out every night and didn't even try to have a conversation with me, but also at myself. Even thought our marriage had long cooled off, I pretended not to notice. I still don't have any solid proof that he's cheating on me. My friend referred me to a private investigator whom she used to build her case. I decided to do the same. The fee was quite expensive, but I considered it as a cost to move forward. I paid it out of my savings, and in no time, I was presented with proof of the affair. The photos show Levi and a young woman walking arm in arm like lovers. They were shopping at a designer's brand boutique and dining at an upscale French restaurant. Then there were photos of them going into a hotel. The woman in the pictures was a college student called Naomi. She was 15 years younger than him. She worked as a bartender in the restaurant near Levi's office. He was a regular there, and there was how they met. He supposedly fell in love with her at first sight. There were pictures of them drinking heavily at the bar. I knew he was cheating on me. He came home late, didn't eat at home, and smelled of alcohol and perfume. It all made sense. The more I looked at the evidence, the clearer it became that he was spending a lot of money to be with her. Where did all this money come from? I checked online banking in a haste. He had taken money out of the retirement savings to finance his affair. There was hardly any money left in the account. I fell to my knees. I can't believe I've been with such an idiot for 10 years. Fury came up from deep inside me. He chose his selfish desire over the future of our marriage. The moment I realized it, I decided to divorce him. I became clear-headed from that point on. I knew that even if I confronted him with the evidence, he would come up with excuses. It was the best to catch him in action. I remember that he mentioned an urgent business trip on Sunday. Old me would have said, "Have a safe trip, good luck," and sent him off, but not anymore. My intuition was telling me that he was going to meet up with his lover. I picked up his tablet, took a breath, and typed in his birthday. He was so careless that he came home reeking of perfume, and that his affair was proven in a matter of seconds. It was easy to guess the password. He was not only careless, but a moron. I unlocked it and looked for some information. There were no messaging apps, and I couldn't find any communication with his lover. I found confirmation of an Airbnb booking in his email though. I immediately recognized the famous glamping site and noted the cabin number he had reserved. The day of booking was the Sunday. He was supposed to have a business trip. He'd better watch out. I was determined to confront him on that day. Sunday arrived.
I don't know what time I'll be back tomorrow.
Okay, have a safe drive. I said, see you later in my mind. Oblivious to what was stored in his immediate future, he left the house cheerfully. I made careful preparation and headed out to the place. The cabin looked bigger and more modern than it looked on the internet. He had never taken me to such a chic place. I felt even angrier. I went to Levi and Naomi's cabin and knocked on the door.
Yes? Who is it?
I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to check your smoke detector. May I come in? Levi opened the door without any suspicion. He was stunned when he saw me standing in front of him. While he was trying to grasp the situation, I forced myself into the back. I opened the thick curtain that divided the lounge area and bedroom and found Naomi sitting on the bed. She seemed to recognize who I was.
Why are you here?
She was in shock. I know you guys were looking forward to a fun trip, but it's too bad.
How did you know where I was?
I explained the sequence of events. He came home late every night, the smell of alcohol and perfume, and the investigation. I told him that I checked his tablet and found out his business trip was a lie.
You've been suspicious?
Of course. Ever since my birthday, you have cancelled our dinner. We're done. While we were arguing, Naomi shrieked in laughter.
I am amused, Mrs.
Have you ever thought that maybe you're the reason he's not interested in you? No wonder he wants to cheat on you.
Yeah, that's right. Naomi is much younger and much better than you. Who wants an old bitch close to 40?
They turned defiant and began to mock me. I tried to hold back my hand from slapping him. Shall we get a divorce then? I took out the file of divorce papers my lawyer had drafted. He snatched it from my hand. Well, goodbye. I left the cabin. Once I was outside, I put my hand in my pocket. I stopped the recorder that had been recording our conversation. Mission accomplished. I removed my name from the joint tenancy agreement and changed everything else to Levi's name, and then returned to my parents' house. I had asked my brother's friend, who worked in the law firm, to take care of my divorce. He was also my brother Aiden's lawyer. Aiden was running his own business. When he graduated from university, he established a company under the guidance of our father, while I went to work for a major corporation. My father had a big influence on us as we were a family of old money. Even so, we had never experienced a luxurious lifestyle. There was an inheritance feud in our grandfather's generation that threatened to destroy the whole family. After my father became the head, they began to live simpler and more solid lives. Aiden and I respected our father very much. So, even after we became independent, we'd been following his teachings and living humbly. Spending money for one's personal greed was absolutely unthinkable. I informed Aiden about the divorce.
A man who doesn't value his family is the worst.
He was indignant. I explained the whole story and mentioned Naomi's name.
I've heard that name before. Maybe...
He then called his HR. Naomi's surname was unusual, so it must have sounded familiar. When he inquired, to our surprise, she had received a job offer from his company. She was apparently very enthusiastic during the interview, saying, "Your company is my first choice." I played him the audio I had recorded at the cabin.
We don't want someone like her in our company. It's nothing related to family matters. She obviously lacks common sense as a member of society.
He immediately called back HR and instruct them to rescind the job offer. A few days later, I was still living with my parents while searching for a job. When I returned home from my interview, I saw the police car live in my house. I asked my parents what had happened and found out that Naomi showed up there.
Offer from my dream job was taken away.
She screamed and threw things in the house. She grabbed my mother and demanded to know where I was, so my father called 911. When she was contacted by Aiden's HR to cancel her job offer, she realized that Aiden and I were siblings. She became hysterical and stormed into my parents' house, claiming that it was my fault. The police subdued her and took her to the station. My parents told the police to just give her a stern warning. When her parents went to pick her up, they told her that she was on her own from then on. They were apparently fed up with their daughter, who caused problems on a regular basis. She lost the job that was lined up for her after graduation and was abandoned by her parents. She became homeless and had to drop out of school. As for Levi, his biggest client was my father's company, which canceled all the contracts. When he found out about it, the blame drained from his face and he fainted. Rumor spread throughout his office, and his colleagues began to look at him with disdain. He had lost his place in the company and resigned voluntarily. There was no way he could quit his job and maintain his existing lifestyle because of the alimony he owed me. He gave up his apartment and moved into a cheaper place. He then tried to rely on Naomi, who kept the bartending job. They got into a heated argument at the restaurant, and the police were called. Naomi wanted nothing to do with him after that. He then began to ambush me around my house.
It was my fault. Please, come back.
What are you talking about now? Stop showing up here. He demanded that we get back together and followed me around like a stalker. When I began to feel unsafe, the one who helped me was James. He was Aiden's PA and our childhood friend. He really put an effort to protect me by patrolling around my house and escorting me. One day, I was walking with James when Levi appeared again.
Who the hell is this guy?
None of your business.
What does he have that I don't have? Come back to me.
When he grabbed my arm, James quickly shook off his hand and, with a brilliant move, he threw Levi off of the ground. James was a judo grandmaster. He worked as a PA and also served as a bodyguard at Aiden's company. Some girls in the neighborhood witnessed the scene.
Who was that? A stalker? Ew! That move was awesome. I got a good video. I'm sure it's gonna go viral.
They were laughing and filming the scene. Levi's face flushed as red as traffic light, and he ran away. He totally deserved it. The guy, who preferred younger women to me, was being ridiculed by them. It was ironic, I thought. I gradually became interested in James after that incident. I eventually found a new job and started dating him at the same time. James told me that he had a crush on me when we were younger. Aiden knew about it, so he was eager to help me expedite my divorce proceedings. It wasn't long before James and I were married. Aiden had always thought about James as his little brother. When we announced our engagement, he was exhilarated that James was becoming family. He was more excited than my father and congratulated us. I promised myself that I would always cherish those who love me.
My husband is all about money and tries to go after my father's retirement pay as a result.
All right, I see. Well, let's get a divorce then. I then put the divorce papers on the table.
What? What's this?
It's the divorce papers, of course. Oh, have you prepared them already? If you did, do you want to use yours then?
No, that's not what I meant. Why are the divorce papers coming from you? Stop being so arrogant, Ivy.
Arrogant? You have been looking down on me this whole time. So that's why you think that I'm arrogant, right? But you're the one being the most arrogant person here.
If you say it like that, then you think that you're better than me, huh?
Well, I am. My name is Ivy. I have been married to my husband, Howard, for 10 years now. I knew my husband from my university years, as he was one of my classmates. But even when we were in the same classes during university, it's not like we began to go out because of that. Howard and I were just in the same classes and were in the same club at that time. After graduating university and second year into working at the company where I work now, Howard and I met again at a drinking party for our university alumni reunion. And from there, we hit it off and ended up getting married. My husband is a very bright and cheerful person. On my second year of working at the company, I was just stuck at work, and when I got to talk to Howard about it, I felt really relaxed, which is why we probably hit it off and I ended up marrying him. But now to think about it, it seems that I made the wrong choice. The first 8 years of our married life was very peaceful and satisfying. It was when my husband changed jobs that our marriage began to fall apart. Howard was so full of hopes and dreams for the future that he happily changed jobs, saying,
I was headhunted.
But instead, his salary was lower and got reduced to half of what it had been before, and for this, he lost his motivation. After that, my husband became depressed and very narrow-minded about some things, and also got very self-deprecating. Still, it was a fact that my husband's brightness and cheerfulness had saved my life previously, and I was determined that it was now my turn to support him. However, this didn't work really well, and as a result, Howard couldn't get the point about my feelings of wanting to help him at all. My husband was always tired and exhausted when he came home late at night. Welcome home! I cooked your favorite pasta for dinner today.
It's okay. I don't need it.
Huh? So, you already ate?
No way. I'm not getting any high income here.
Then, aren't you hungry a little bit? You need to eat something to cheer up.
That's really annoying, you know? You think that I'm useless, don't you?
What? I've never thought of you that way.
Well, I'm not really sure about that.
Saying that, my husband would not try to even look at me and would go back into his room. Even so, I won't give up easily, and I'll cook his favorite meals. But he would only take a few bites of it and then quickly goes back into his room. On weekends and on day offs, I would suggest that maybe we could go out for dinner, but he would just say,
We don't have that kind of money,
and wouldn't go anywhere. I really didn't know what to do anymore. And it was at that time my husband would make an impossible proposal to me. Well, that was probably the main reason as to why our relationship got worse. On that day, my husband came home early, which was very rare. And the expression he had on his face was very calm. Did something good happen? It makes me happy to see him like that too.
Ivy, I got a suggestion.
Okay, what is it?
Can you quit your work?
Excuse me? Quit work? There was no way I could do that now. My husband's monthly net income is less than $1,800. Our monthly rent is $600, and the utilities fees are about $200 per month. My husband's cigarette costs more than about $200 a month. Even if I calculate roughly like that, $1,000 are already gone. Even if we do our best to control the expenses for the food, $400 would probably be our limit. If we pay for both of our phone bills, $100 will be gone. And what can we do with the remaining $300? $300 is better than nothing, but for the two of us, it would not be enough at all.
You know, it's really difficult for me. Knowing that you're earning more income than me? What, your current net income is about $2,000 per month, right?
What the hell is he talking about? I've been working at the company for over 10 years now. I really wonder what is going on in Howard's head sometimes. My net income per month is $3,500. But I guess that I should never say that to Howard.
I can't take it anymore. So if you quit work, then I'll feel much better, you know?
I was so angry at what he was saying. It seems like Howard was really looking down on me from the very beginning. He was probably thinking that he was providing for his wife, who made way less money than he actually did. No, I won't quit my work.
Huh? Why not?
It's because I love my job and my company.
So, you don't love me then?
That's not what I'm even saying. I am very proud of my job, so I have never thought about quitting my job at all. Then, my husband laughed as he let out a huge sigh.
You're proud of a job that only pays you $2,000? That's really funny.
Well, if that's funny, you, on the other hand, has a job which would only pay less than $1,800. If I could say that to him, then it would have definitely made me feel better. But if I said that, then I would be in the same level as him. I tried my best to remain calm and proceeded with the conversation. After that, my husband continued to pressure me to quit my job, but I never agreed to his idea. Then, my husband made some idiotic excuses and stopped providing any money into the family budget. What was the whole purpose of me being with this man? I really couldn't understand anymore. Then, just as I was beginning to think about getting a divorce, my husband began to talk about my father. My parents divorced after I graduated university and began working at the company. The reason for their divorce was because they just didn't get along well. There was no issues like cheating on each other or being violent. So what my parents had was an amicable divorce. When I was told of their decision to divorce each other, I was really surprised. Because to me, they seemed to be very close to each other as a couple. But still, I accepted my parents' divorce, thanking them for waiting until I had graduated and began working at a company. Now that they had finished raising the kids, I decided that if they were going to lead their new separate lives, I would support them in any ways. So, when my husband and I married, I lived with my mother, so I never really discussed about my father in details. My father, of course, attended our wedding, but we only saw each other only a few times a year.
Come to think of it, your father's about to retire, right?
Huh? Why?
Oh, it's nothing, but he's been delivering newspapers all his life, right? It was a lot of work for him, wasn't it?
It seems like Howard is misunderstanding something here. This conversation took place when we had just began going out.
Oh, by the way, what does your father do for a living, Ivy?
Oh, my father's a newspaper...
Is he the guy that delivers newspapers?
What?
That must be a tough job. I guess you're really grateful of your father, huh? I'm guessing his income is not that high, right? But even so, he did all his best to raise you up, Ivy.
Well, he's not 100% wrong, but if Howard thought it that way, then I thought it was okay for him to think that way about my father. Since then, my father wasn't mentioned that much, so I didn't really try to correct Howard about my father's job. But why did my husband bring up my father right now at this time? I couldn't understand what Howard was thinking. And then, when I had forgotten that we had talked about my father, I began to receive these mysterious phone calls on my phone. When I picked them up, it was always silent. At first, it was creepy, and I was slightly terrified as to why there were these silent calls, but the phone number which kept on calling me was displayed on my phone. So, does this mean that the person who is calling me wants me to know who that person is? As I began to think that way, I gradually became less and less concerned about these silent calls. And one day, when I got the call, I switched the phone on speaker and left it alone. Well, it's not like I was the one calling, so I wouldn't be charged for these calls. And that's when I heard someone cough over the phone. That person definitely sounded like a woman. I see, so it was a woman who's been calling me. Then I heard, "I'm home," over the phone, and then the call was disconnected right after that. That voice is my husband's voice, right? I see, so there's a woman whom my husband is really close to that he can even say, "I'm home," and visit her at her home like it was his. He doesn't even try to provide for the family, and all he does is tries to pressure me to quit my job. I really don't need a husband like him anymore. I immediately requested the investigating agency and asked them to investigate about my husband. It was difficult to find a good agency, and it took some time to sign a contract with them, but 2 months after finding out about Howard saying I'm home to another woman, I was able to get enough evidence of his affair. And I was waiting for the right time to divorce Howard. Unfortunately, my husband brought up the subject about divorce before me. It was a very upsetting story for my part, but my husband has suggested for a divorce.
Hey, how much did your father get when he retired? He already retired, right?
Huh?
So, I'm asking you, how much did your father get when he retired?
I don't think he'll get any retirement money.
What? Then what was the point of me being with you all this time?
I don't really understand what you're saying.
I mean, I knew that he wouldn't get much retirement money since he only worked as a newspaper delivery man, but still, it's better than not getting it.
Well, yes, indeed. It's better to get it than not to get it.
And yet, your father won't even get the retirement money.
Yeah, he won't.
What the hell? I have been putting up with this for 10 years. I just wasted all my time, huh? If we can't rely on your father with money, then I don't want you anymore. I'm divorcing you.
Did you marry me for money?
No, not everything is like that. I already knew that a newspaper delivery man like your father won't get much benefits. It's that attitude of yours since you had the last 2 years or so. That's why I feel like I'm not really attracted to you anymore. You've been looking down on me ever since I transferred to my crappy job, haven't you? And that's why I was being depressed too. So, I'm getting alimony from you as well as getting a divorce from you.
All right, I see. Well, let's get a divorce then. I then put the divorce papers on the table.
What? What's this?
It's the divorce papers, of course. Oh, have you prepared them already? If you did, do you want to use yours then?
No, that's not what I meant. Why are the divorce papers coming from you? Stop being so arrogant, Ivy.
Arrogant? You have been looking down on me this whole time, which is why you think that I'm arrogant, right? But you're the one being the most arrogant person here.
If you say it like that, then you think that you're better than me, huh?
Well, I am. I don't look down on people like you do. And I would never ever cheat with another person behind my partner's back.
Huh?
I'm going to charge alimony to you and to your mistress, so please do keep that in mind.
What the hell? You knew about that?
Yeah, because I kept getting silent phone calls from your mistress. Don't you dare think that you can get away with this. I will track you down to the ends of the earth and make you pay for everything you've done. Saying that, I kicked my husband out of the house and locked the door. A month later, the divorce was finalized. I was able to get my ex-husband and his mistress to pay me alimonies. My ex-husband seemed to have saved up quite a bit of money, and he transferred me all the amount at once. I thought this would finally settle things down, but my ex-husband, without any lessons learned, tried to start a second round. Well, it's pretty obvious that I won again this time. That happened 2 months after the divorce was finalized. When I came home, my ex-husband was standing in front of the door. I took my ex-husband, who insisted for a chat, to a nearby cafe, and he suddenly burst into tears.
Why didn't you tell me about it?
About what?
About your father.
Huh? My ex-husband showed me an article from a magazine. In it was an interview of my father, with a photo of his face on the article.
Your father? is the editor-in-chief, right?
Oh, about that. Yeah, that's right.
That means you lied to me intentionally, right? If I sue you for it, I'll be compensated, right?
Then why don't you hire a lawyer and file a claim for it? But, well, if you have the money, that is. Besides, I wasn't lying to you intentionally, you know. Sometimes my father does carry newspapers and magazines to his clients, so it doesn't change the fact that he delivers newspapers. I mean, you just jumped to conclusions on that one on your own. Oh, and you're also claiming compensation for emotional distress, right? Go ahead and do it. We can even take this to court if you want. I will never run away, so bring it on. Let's fight this to the end.
Even if you say that, you're still going to lose. You also lied to me about his retirement benefits.
No, you see, my father hasn't retired yet. So how can you say that I lied about his retirement benefits? Besides, what does my father's retirement benefits have to do with us? Even if my father gets his retirement money in the future, it's his money, and it has nothing to do with me, you know?
But still, you might get some from him too, right?
Yeah, so what?
Then I could have gotten it too.
All you care about is only money, no matter what, huh? Because you were blinded by the money, you believed in stupid words like headhunt, and your salary decreased, isn't that right? Snap out of it, will you? I have nothing more to say to you. Don't ever show your face in front of me ever again. If you ever appear in front of me again, I will sue you, and I mean it. I slammed the $10 on the table and left the cafe. I loved him once, but that man is no longer the man I fell in love with. No, he probably was like that to begin with, but I guess I just couldn't see it. I couldn't make any good judgments about him that well. First of all, I need to learn how to judge a person's character and who they really are. My ex-husband never visited me after that, but a year later, I saw him unexpectedly. That day, I was enjoying shopping with my friends. And, as we were about to enter a restaurant, I saw my ex-husband. He was wearing a uniform and serving customers. Apparently, he was working as a waiter in that restaurant. I was surprised to see him work in a very different industry from his previous ones, but I was glad he was hired. I guess he's doing his own best to make a living on his own. My friend and I looked at each other, chuckled, and quietly left. Since my divorce, I have been expanding my social life to better myself. I have become reluctant to get married because of what had happened with my ex-husband, and probably I will not remarry in the future. I live for my work, and this is one of the options that some people would choose. With what had happened in the past, I want to learn from it and live my life to the fullest. A husband who relies on his father-in-law's retirement money, he must be really weird. I hope that there's a lot of happiness waiting for Ivy in her future life. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in our next video.
My husband divorces me because he had an affair and got his mistress pregnant, but actually...
My name is Amelia. I am 30 years old, and I work in a company. I am a hard-working career woman who loves her job, and since I love my job, you could even say that I am a workaholic. But even if I am a workaholic, I am married to my husband, Todd. I met my husband, Todd, at my previous company that I used to work for. Since we both loved to just work, we often talked about our jobs and about the company we worked at and went out for drinks together. Since then, we gradually got attracted to each other and started to officially go out as a couple. And 3 years has passed, in the blink of an eye since we got married. And as we both work, we tend to share the house chores together. Since it has always been this way, I have no particular complaints about Todd or about anything. But for some reason, people around me have been asking me about if we are going to have kids or not recently. It seems that to many people, after 3 years of marriage, it is only normal to have a child or at least get pregnant. Well, it is true that the number of housewives with kids are increasing among my friends who are all in the same age as me. I guess the people who are concerned about it does not mean to be offensive about it, but instead, they are just simply worried and concerned about me. But well, my parents-in-law are being very annoying about it though. Every time Todd and I visit my parents-in-law at their place, they would always ask me about when they would get to see their grandkids. The other day, they even said this: "Maybe it's not good that you both work. Because of that, maybe you don't have time to get pregnant, right?" I don't have time and enough space in my heart to respond to every single comments that my parents-in-law make, so I just shrugged it off. To begin with, neither my husband nor I are in a hurry to have kids right away. Todd and I always talk about me getting pregnant as if it will happen naturally. And since both of us love our jobs, I think that it would be fine if it ends up being just the two of us. Even so, I can't ignore the fact that the pressure we get from the people are getting stronger and stronger, and I feel a little bad when someone mentions the idea of trying to get pregnant to me. On difficult days like that, I unconsciously cook some easy snacks, which goes really well with beer, and eat and drink to forget the topic of getting pregnant or trying to have a baby. I find myself falling asleep on the couch, and seeing me asleep, my husband carries me to the bed. We really do have a well-balanced and harmonious life as a married couple. Why do I have to listen and care about what other people say? Just as I was being a little discouraged about having kids, I received a call from my brother, who was 3 years younger than me, telling me that he and his wife just had a baby. Hearing the news, I went to the hospital with my mother. Once we arrived to the hospital, I saw a very cute, adorable baby in my brother's arms. I was allowed to hold her in my arms, and I was so moved and touched by how the baby was so full of life and energy, even though she was really small. It really was a strange feeling. I see, so this is what it means to have a baby, huh? My younger brother, who was also concerned about his own wife's health, was always with her and spoke to her kindly and took care of her. As his big sister, I always thought that my brother was spoiled and really weak, but he had become a very brave, strong man, and I was moved again to think that this is what it means to become a father. And after this experience, I am a little ashamed at myself for admitting this, but I wanted to have a baby right away. Once I went home, I told my husband about what had happened and about my feelings. When I said that we should try to have a baby, my husband suddenly started to cry. Huh? What happened? Why are you crying?
Well, no, it's happy tears because you said that you wanted a baby and that we should try to have a baby, you know? Actually, I have been wanting to have kids for a long time now.
What? Really? You did? But I thought we agreed to wait and let it happen all naturally.
Well, you said that you still wanted to work hard at your company, Amelia, so I have been actually holding back, you know.
Oh, wow. Is that so? Then I am really sorry for giving you a hard time.
No, it's okay. Let's do our best and try to have a baby from now on.
Finding out about my husband's unexpected feelings, I reflected back on how selfish I was and felt bad. I was living too selfishly, haven't I? A husband and a wife should walk together and cooperate together as a married couple. So, since then, Todd and I did everything we could do for me to get pregnant. We gathered information on the internet, asked friends and their experiences in having kids, and just did everything we could. But no matter how much we tried, unfortunately, I still could not get pregnant at all. And before I knew it, a year passed in no time, and after 4 years of marriage, I could not get pregnant, and we still did not have any kids. My parents-in-law began to blame Todd and I even more harshly, saying it was strange that we could not have a child after trying so hard. So, my husband and I finally decided to undergo infertility treatment. I felt kind of bad about doing something like this, as it felt like we were trying to find out who the culprit was, but I changed my mind and decided to look at the situation from a positive perspective, as treatment can make things better. Todd and I then underwent various tests. After taking various tests, the clinic said that the results would be mailed to us at a later date. Since there was no point at all in being impatient and just being stressed about it, so I went about my business as usual. Then, one day after work, I suddenly received a text message from my husband. He had texted me asking to meet him at a bar. How unusual. Does this mean that he wants to eat out for the first time in a while? My husband is basically the type of person who likes to drink at home and doesn't want to go out that much. I replied back asking, "What's wrong?" But to that, he replied, "Just come over." I wondered what it was about, but since it was within walking distance from where I worked at, I headed to the bar anyway. When I arrived at the bar, my husband saw me and waved at me to come over. We sat down together and I ordered the same beer that my husband was drinking. As we ate our appetizers, I asked my husband, "What's wrong?" asking me to come over here all of a sudden. To that, my husband replied, "I wanted to talk to you about something." And suddenly, he became serious.
A person will come in a few minutes, so please hold on until then.
Oh, someone's coming over too?
Yeah.
I thought that this all sounded a little complicated, but I just continued to drink the beer and waited around with my husband for someone to come. Since I was getting a little hungry, we ordered fried chicken and some other snacks, which goes well with the beer. And about 10 minutes later, a woman whom I've never seen before came toward our table.
"Oh, Kendall. Over here. Over here."
The woman called Kendall came over, and she sat down beside Todd. She looked very young, so she is maybe in her early 20s, which means she must have just started working.
"Would you like a beer too, Kendall?"
Yes, please. Thank you. My husband orders the beer for Kendall as if this was a normal thing to do. Sorry, but who are you?
Her name is Kendall, and she's one of my colleagues at work. She recently joined our company.
Hi, nice to meet you. Oh, hi. What is the meaning of this? What's the reason for my husband to bring his colleague here out of the blue? Just what kind of situation is this? A lot of questions began to pop up in my head. I noticed that the beer was also placed in front of Kendall, and to this my husband said, "Cheers." So I hurriedly toasted with my can of beer as well. Why is Miss Kendall brought over here? And besides, You said that you wanted to talk to me about something earlier on, Todd, so what is it that you want to talk to me about? If I didn't say or question anything at this point, the conversation wouldn't go anywhere, so I couldn't help but ask Todd about it. Then, my husband and Kendall both put down their beer and got very serious.
Amelia, please listen to me. Kendall got pregnant, and she is having a baby.
Oh, really? Kendall's becoming a mother even though she's young, huh? It must be tough.
And the baby is mine.
What? Hearing this outrageous news, it felt as if I was being hit on the head from behind with a bat or something.
I'm really sorry, Amelia. Since I got Kendall pregnant with the baby, I want us to get a divorce.
Excuse me? Miss Amelia, please. I want to be with Todd so that we could raise our baby together. I really couldn't wrap my head around what both Todd and Kendall was saying. You mean to say that despite all what my husband has said about doing our best on trying to have a baby and getting infertility treatment with me, he just happened to have a child with someone he played around with, so now he's going to leave me and be with that person? This is just really unbelievable.
I really feel bad about what I did, Amelia.
Since when?
Huh?
I'm asking you, since how long have you been having an affair with her behind my back?
Well, let's see.
It was about 6 months ago in April. That was when I just joined the company then, and we had a welcoming party, and on the way home I asked him, "All right, that's enough, thank you." So that's how the affair started, huh? Both my husband and Kendall nodded together.
I know that this is not something that you'd expect at all, Amelia. But the fact that Kendall and I had a child so easily like this makes me think that she and I were destined to be together. Because, Amelia, we try so hard to have a baby and for you to get pregnant, but in the end, you couldn't get pregnant, right? So, I'm really sorry to you, Amelia, but I want you to divorce me and go on our own ways.
Hearing what he had to say, I was just so pissed off that I didn't know what to say back to him. Who the hell does he think he is? Was Todd saying that just because I couldn't get pregnant and couldn't have a baby, so this woman was way better than me? And was Todd saying that because that this woman has a child, my marriage to him is no longer important to Todd? Is this all what Todd thought of me as? I mean, why would Todd even make me come over to a bar to talk such important things like divorce? And Todd just ordered beer as if it was a casual thing, right? Does he think that we can talk about divorce and how our married life is in shambles in a stupid bar? How dare you underestimate me? You are such an asshole. Thinking all these things, my anger exploded at once, and I poured the beer I was holding in my hand onto my husband. Oh, Todd! Are you alright?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was prepared for this to happen so that I can be with you, Kendall. I need to put up with it.
Oh, Todd! I was beyond disgusted. Who the hell do they think they are? Both Todd and Kendall was in their own world. I will gladly divorce a stupid guy like you. And with that, I left the bar. I then went back home first and packed my bags. And that was when I suddenly saw a mail in the post, so I had taken it out to see what it was. Oh, this. And there, I learned the shocking truth. Thinking that I could use this, I quickly packed up my belongings and left home. For the time being, I went back to my parents' house and explained the situation to them. Both my parents were upset with my husband and how he acted towards me, so they told me that I could stay as long as I wanted. The apartment I was living in with my husband was rented under his name, so I had no right to continue and live there. Besides, I didn't want to live there anymore because I was too disgusted to think that maybe that woman was using the apartment too. A few days later, my husband sent me the divorce papers, so I signed the papers and submitted them right away. With this, the divorce was finalized smoothly. As for the alimonies, I hired a lawyer and got my ex-husband and Kendall to pay me $20,000 each. A few months later, it seems like Todd and Kendall got married. Since it was indeed a shotgun marriage for Kendall, she quit her company and became a full-time housewife to Todd. I then waited for the perfect time to come. Kendall had told me how many months had passed since she got pregnant previously when I was divorcing Todd, so there were a few more months until the time when Todd and Kendall's baby would be born. Then, I visited Todd and his parents at the right time when their baby would be born. Todd's parents were very surprised that I came out of the blue to visit them. I had heard from my ex-husband that his parents had agreed with him, saying that he should switch to a younger woman than me if he was going to have a baby. So when I saw my ex-mother-in-law's face, I really had the urge to hit her. And Todd's parents were being surprised. But I heard a familiar voice coming from behind. It was my ex-husband.
Oh, you? Why the hell are you here?
In his arms was a small baby. The baby was innocent, but because the baby's parents are Todd and Kendall, I didn't think that the baby wasn't that cute at all. Well, I came here to talk to your parents. But good thing that you're here too.
What is it?
I'll make it quick, okay? That baby isn't yours.
What the? This baby is mine.
I'm sorry to say this, but that baby isn't yours.
Based on what information are you even saying that? You're not saying that out of spite, are you?
No, because it's not. It's just the truth. Well, it could be from just a small revenge too, but did you know that your body is incapable of having any kids?
What?
Well, this is the evidence. These are the results of the fertility tests. My ex-husband and his mother both looked over the documents. And as they read on, their faces grew paler and paler. The results showed that my ex-husband's body was completely incapable of having kids. So, there was no possibility of having a child if it was with him.
Well, then this baby is...
It would mean that this baby is another man's child. But, well, I'm not really sure if Kendall is in touch with that man, but yeah.
No way!
My ex-husband slumps down from all the shock. Well, that's it then. Goodbye. It was quite refreshing to see my ex-husband's reaction and his face looking very hopeless. And no doubt, Kendall will get what she deserves after she comes back. They all got what they deserved. Later, I heard what had happened with Todd and Kendall from a friend of mine who works at Todd's office, and it turns out that Kendall and Todd got divorced after all. My ex-husband was not only an asshole, but also an idiot for cheating on me and recognizing too late that the baby was someone else's child. And since people found out about what had happened, a lot of people thought that he was stupid enough to be too gullible about what was happening. People at his workplace also seemed to look at Todd coldly because of that, and since Todd was having a hard time at work, he also got demoted in the end. This is what Todd gets and deserves. On the other hand, as for me, as a result of my hard work, I was promoted and my income went up drastically. I am now living alone in a very nice apartment in the city and enjoying a very comfortable life. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in our next video.
Saving money on the sly? It just makes you look cheap.
When we got married, my husband used to compliment me, saying I was frugal and a good wife. But in just 2 years, he had completely changed.
You're poor and not a match for me. Divorce me because I'm living with my rich lover.
Oh, really? How rich is your lover? You seem to think you're supporting me. Well, that's a huge misconception. It's a relief that I can save myself some trouble. I'll gladly divorce you. I'm Rebecca, a stay-at-home mom who just turned 30. I met my husband, Zach, who is 2 years older, through a mutual friend 3 years ago. Zach came at me strong and we started dating right away. After a year of dating, we got married. At the time, I was a receptionist at a major department store, and Zach worked as a corporate employee in a large company. It was a marriage that others envied. I left my job after marriage to become a full-time housewife. Zach's mother is a full-time housewife and frugal. It was my husband's wish that I would always be home to make ends meet and support the family. Zach had lived at home all his life until he got married. He said he had never done housework. However, after marrying me, he started doing most of the cleaning and laundry, saying he didn't want my hands to get rough. Every day, I could feel how much he wanted to treat me like a princess and cherish me.
Rebecca, you're beautiful, so stay just the way you are.
He used to say such things. In response to my husband's feelings, I also made an effort to save and manage our finances. 1 year into our marriage, we were blessed with a cute son. Zach took paternity leave and actively participated in childcare, earning the nickname Involved Father from those around us. For the future, we decided to keep a childcare diary together, and Zach bought a diary made of high-quality paper. At first, he willingly wrote about childcare and our life together, but eventually Zach stopped maintaining the diary after about half a year. Nevertheless, I continued to keep the diary, intending to show it to our son someday. Zach's attitude changed dramatically around the time our son turned 1. Not only did he stop keeping a diary, he stopped taking care of the baby. He stopped doing any housework that he used to take the lead on. Moreover, he started finding fault with my childcare and housework. He began to complain.
Your food just tastes poor. You should dress this kid in better clothes. The house smells and it's depressing.
The husband who used to praise me for being good at saving money? Where did he go? Moreover, he started coming home unusually late, and the opportunities for the three of us to have dinner together became almost non-existent. On weekdays and holidays, he would go somewhere by himself. When I asked him where he was going, he said he had to go outside because the house smelled so poor. He also kicked my son and me out of his bedroom for crying too loudly at night. I had no choice but to sleep in the living room with my son. Eventually, Zach stopped even holding our son. Then one day, after sending Zach off to work and finishing cleaning and laundry, and as I was preparing to take our son to the park, the doorbell rang loudly. Hello? Looking through the peephole, I saw an unfamiliar woman standing there. Regretting my hasty response, I decided to open the door. Good morning. Do you know who I am? The woman, adorned in branded items from head to toe, spoke impolitely. I shouldn't have any acquaintances like her. After pondering for a moment, correct. I'm Zach's girlfriend. This kid is your son, right? And you're the wife. She started talking. I couldn't make sense of the sudden situation, and I was about to take the word of a woman who had just arrived out of the blue. Anyway, I need to talk to my husband. Could you leave? But she replied, I'll stay until Zach comes back. If I leave it to him, it'll take forever. And she refuses to leave. If this kept going on, being trapped in this conversation at the doorway was getting unbearable. I reluctantly let the woman inside. If you hear my story, you'll probably want to break up. But well, you seem to be short on money and there's a baby, right? You won't leave Zach, will you? She said. Conveniently, our son started crying. He's crying, so could you please leave? I said, but she showed no sign of caring and started talking incessantly. She, the same age as me, turned out to be a president's daughter from somewhere and fell for Zach at first sight, actively pursuing him herself. They quickly grew fond of each other. It's been about 3 months since they started dating. Suddenly, she showed up uninvited, not even paying attention to the crying baby. I couldn't believe how little etiquette today's president's daughters seem to have. Do you know what Zach says about you? The woman couldn't stop talking. Before marriage, you had a low income, but you worked as a receptionist and he could proudly showcase your beauty. However, now you have no income and give off a poor auntie like vibe that he can't introduce to anyone. Your food smells like poverty. You insist on home daycare for your son, who's already a year old, until he's 3, but you're a stay-at-home mom who doesn't make enough money, so you just can't leave him in daycare. He calls you a parasite for not working and living off him just because you two have a child. There's more, but do you want to hear it? That's enough. Apparently, Zach is having an affair with this woman. Anyway, I will talk to my husband. I shoved the woman out the door. Hurry up and get a divorce, okay? Oh, and I don't want that crybaby either. With these parting words, she finally left. What on earth was that? He's a messed up father, I muttered while soothing my son. Late at night, Zach returned home. I have something to talk about.
What is it? Are you tired? If it's just complaints about parenting, say it somewhere else.
His usual dismissive response. But I said, Today, a woman claiming to be your girlfriend was at our place. As I began speaking, Zach's face turned pale for a moment, and he began to get flustered. However, he quickly composed himself and said,
I'm the one earning the money, you know. You can divorce me if you want. A poor woman like you can't survive without me, right? Even now you're struggling with childcare. Working and raising a child is impossible for you. Oh, and even if you work, with your abilities, can you support the child? Trouble will just come your way.
He began threatening.
You, who seem to lack intelligence and rely only on your appearance, should be grateful to have someone like me, an accomplished individual with high education and income, as your husband. Oh, and looks-wise, aren't you already an old woman now?
He began making a series of demeaning remarks, looking down on me. My husband, Zach, who criticized me, while conveniently ignoring his own infidelity, shocked me more with his words than his affair. I regretted marrying such a man, wondering if I had given too much. The only solace was the presence of our adorable son. From that day on, Zach boldly maintained contact with his affair partner, even going on trips with her. A mutual friend who introduced us attempted to advise him to end the affair, but he turned a deaf ear. Our friend grew exasperated as Zach became increasingly infatuated with his lover. Eventually, he stopped providing the $2,000 monthly allowance he used to give. In the midst of all this, I succumbed to the fatigue of childcare and the stress of the situation, experiencing a decline in my health. Our son's still very young and our house was in disarray. Yet Zach continued to spend time with his affair partner without lending a helping hand. My husband would not help me, so I had to use a local childcare sitter and housekeeping service to get things done. When my husband Zach found out about it,
utilizing the local welfare system instead of hiring a babysitter or a housekeeper directly? You're really going for those petty savings. It just reeks of poverty.
With these words, any lingering sympathy I had for Zach disappeared completely. I began contemplating when to bring up the topic of a divorce. I was caught up in childcare and had disheveled hair, so Zach looked at me and said,
"What's with that damaged hair? Can't you even take care of your hair? You're finished as a woman."
He gazed at me as if looking at something dirty. Then he continued,
"It's just not working out. You, a poor woman, aren't a match for me. Let's get divorced because I'm living with my wealthy mistress. Seems like she doesn't want a kid, so I'll give it to you."
He handed me the divorce agreement. I've been waiting for this. It saves the trouble of me saying it myself, and there won't be a custody battle. I was secretly jumping for joy. "Gladly," I said, as I accepted the divorce agreement.
Is that okay?
"What do you mean? You're the one who brought it up." Zach looked surprised as he observed my lively demeanor.
"I guess my parents would want to see him once a month. I'm creating a new family, you know? It's like having an extra burden, and I don't want to see him if I don't have to."
He says,
"I'll hand over child support during visitations. About $140 a month until he turns 18. It's enough for your poor son, right? Even after divorce, I'm doing the right thing. Aren't I generous?"
He stated an amount well below the standard child support calculation table, and I couldn't tell if he was ignorant or just stingy. It was unexpected for him to bring up child support. But I'm not only claiming child support, but also alimony. I look forward to it. I immediately began preparations to leave the house. As I packed my belongings with my son in my arms, Zach approached and said,
"A single unemployed mother like you can't afford rent, right? Can you even find a place to rent? You're practically an outcast with no family to return to. I live in the luxurious mansion of my affair partner. I'll do you a final favor, sending your belongings. It's probably some rundown apartment near a supermarket, right? Leave your new address."
I remained silent and left a paper with the address on the desk. A few days later, Zach visited my house with a moving company. Despite being outside of town, Zach had made the effort to visit. It seemed like he had come for reconnaissance, thinking the address would be different from what he expected.
"Huh? Why are you living in a place like this? Found yourself a new man, huh?"
He asked with wide eyes. My new residence was in a well-known area, famous for the wealthy mansions. My father died of illness when I was very young. My mother raised me with her own hands, but she died 3 years later as if to take my father's place. Then my maternal grandparents raised me. My grandmother also died when I was 20. My grandfather was a well-known wealthy man who died 2 years before I married Zach. My mother was an only child, and to my grandparents, I was their only grandchild. So the whole estate was inherited by me. It's a house I own. Since we got married and moved out of town, it has been vacant. Combined with other properties, it's worth around $1 million. I haven't been able to manage it properly. As you mentioned, being a parasite and poor, it's not as grand as your lover's residence, but it's a comfortable place to live. I spoke with a touch of sarcasm. Zach couldn't hide his surprise.
What? What do you mean?
He started to say. I didn't want to waste my time and energy explaining it to this man, so I kept silent.
So that means it's my asset too, right? Surely even after a divorce, I should have rights to half. It's shared property, so hand over half, whether it's money or land. Give me my fair share.
He made this outrageous demand, leaving me completely astonished. It's premarital property, so it doesn't become shared property. You, being highly educated and earning well, should know this common knowledge.
Who told you that? Your face might be good enough for a new boyfriend. Are you a lawyer or something?
He continued with absurd statements. As I stayed silent in disbelief, Zach, as if adding fuel to the fire, continued with more and more absurd statements. Unable to bear it any longer, I spoke up. I'm not relying on anyone for support. The statements I made earlier are common sense, I believe. I was enrolled in the law school, so I have some knowledge, although I haven't used it at all because it's basic common knowledge. At this, Zach responded.
What? Weren't you just a high school graduate? I've never heard about that, you traitor,
he shouted. I think you're making assumptions about everything, and I think you have made up your own mind about me. And the one who deserves the name traitor is you, the one who cheated on your wife, I said calmly. Then Zach said,
What's with that tone? If that's the case, you must be rich. Return the moving expenses. Also contribute to our moving expenses as compensation, he demanded. As you've mentioned before, I'm just a poor person with a total asset of only $1 million. It's beyond my means to accommodate the demands of someone involved with a wealthy partner. Therefore, I'll graciously accept your kindness for the moving expenses as planned. Also, I'd appreciate if you could clarify what the compensation is for. I replied sarcastically. Zach couldn't counter and left muttering complaints. The next day he called. What's going on? The cancellation penalty for the house is $7,000, which is 2 months' rent. What does that mean? The rent is $3,500 per month?
He exclaimed in a panic. It's a standalone house in an upscale residential area. Didn't you find it strange? It was originally my own house, but a month before the divorce I transferred the rights to another owner and continued living there as a rental under your name. You left me in charge of the house, and it helped that you initiated the divorce. Zach, who had been living with his parents all this time, seemed to be unaware of not only the rent, but also the overall cost of living.
Was I living in your house? Being supported by you?
Even over the phone, his stunned expression was palpable. A few days later, Zach called again.
Hey, what's the deal with child support of $550 and alimony? You're rich, so you don't need it, right?
He seemed anxious. In fact, while I was preparing for the divorce, I had recordings of his verbal abuse and evidence that he didn't give me my living expenses. The luxurious diary Zach had prepared had subtly transformed into a notebook documenting not only our child's growth, but also the emotional abuse by my husband. This became another crucial piece of evidence. Furthermore, I had employed a detective agency to obtain evidence of Zach's infidelity. With a lawyer in place, I claimed substantial alimony from both emotional abuse and adultery. I initially had no plans to request child support, but despite having assets, I was unemployed. For the sake of my son, I decided to ensure Zach contributed as a responsible father and included child support in the claim.
So you did have a lawyer after all?
He started to say that. The lawyer I hired was a woman. It's unbelievable. Zach's level of misconceptions is so pitifully amusing. I can't help but laugh. And then the detective agency's investigation revealed something even more outrageous. The woman with whom Zach was having an affair, the daughter of the company president, was actually a marriage fraudster, and her claim to be the daughter of the company president was an outright lie. She had deceived him, claiming that if they got married, her father, who was the company president, would give them a wedding gift. Falling for the scam, Zach ended up shouldering the entire debt of his cheating partner, who turned out to be a scam artist. However, she disappeared without a trace after the marriage. Zach looked very upset. And Zach, whose wallet is completely empty,
"Can you let me stay until I find the next place?"
He said this, once again stating something unbelievable. Furthermore,
"You must own some apartments, right? Give me at least one free room as a former couple's goodwill."
He started making all sorts of demands. Like a weak dog barking incessantly, Zach kept on barking. Knowing that saying anything would be futile, I remained silent and listened until the end. "I assume you've received the notification. I have retained a lawyer, and it's inconvenient to be contacted in this manner. Please communicate through my lawyer going forward. If you wish to have visitation with our son, please file for visitation mediation." With that, I hung up. I blocked all phone calls and emails. Not having to hear Zach's foolish talk or complaints made me feel relieved. 3 years have passed since the divorce, and there hasn't been any contact regarding visitation. Frankly, I'm relieved. I absolutely don't want my son to meet his father's family, or anyone associated with him. If you are cornered and end up adopting a close-minded personality, it can be quite challenging. I never want to see my ex-husband's face for the rest of my life, and I don't want to show mine to him either. I don't want to be involved. Even now, information about my ex-husband comes through mutual friends. In the end, Zach lost all his assets, had to pay child support for our son, and also paid alimony to me. He's living at home with his parents with a chip on his shoulder. He was fired from his job after getting into trouble at his company due to his highly conceited personality. Despite all the ragging about my appearance, his hair is shaggy and his shirts are always shabby, as he works day and night at a low-paying company. On the other hand, I have built a new house, and I'm living with my son. The large mansion that my husband also knows about was put up for sale, and we built a completely new house in a different area. I also effectively managed other neglected assets, enabling us to generate income. I cherish the precious time spent with our son, who is growing every day, and enjoy each day. Also, I re-enrolled in law school at the same time my son entered kindergarten. I was frustrated when I was younger, but I am studying every day to become a lawyer. The alimony from Zach is well spent on my tuition. Like the cool female lawyer who helped me, I want to strive to become a reliable woman and a proud mother to my son. Life is still ahead of us. I'm going to erase what happened with my ex-husband from my memory and live with my beautiful son, enjoying life together.